Welcome to another episode of Season 2 of the Panjwai podcast. As always, you can find our episodes on all podcast platforms, as well as YouTube and Facebook for the video episodes. Please be sure to hit the subscribe button on your platform of choice, and if you enjoy what you hear, head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a nice 5-star review.
If you want to support the podcast financially, we've set up a few ways for you to do so this season. You can become a patron by hopping over to patreon.com/thepanjwai and sign up for a small monthly donation. If you want to make a one-time donation, you can find us on Venmo at the Panjwai Podcast. And last but not least, we've got a small selection of merchandise in our store. So if you head over to thepanjwaipodcast.com and click on the store tab, you'll see stickers and other merchandise, and who knows what might come down the pipeline. So remember, on all three platforms, that's the Panjwai Podcast. Panjwai podcast. Thank you. So actually, the naivety of me when I joined the military is I wanted to be airborne. That was kind of like my thing.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to take my chances and go to Fort Campbell in Kentucky. Because I'm from Kentucky originally. And so I thought I'd be like 3.5 hours from home. Like, that would be pretty sweet.
It's a good
so
unit.
When I went,
so you thought?
Yeah, I thought 101st Airborne, scuba, high speed.
Scuba.
I haven't heard that in a while, have you, Curtis? There's an inside joke, too. But anyways. Yeah, so I pushed really hard for that when I was going through my recruitment process, and the dude looked at me and he's like, I can't get you airborne, man. And the original contract he offered me was 3 years, 11 Bravo, straight up, no airborne. I want to say it was like a $25,000 sign bonus.
Dang.
Uh-oh.
I don't know about that
I
one.
said I wanted to go airborne. I was determined. And so he dangled a 4.5-year contract, Ranger contract. I didn't know what the fuck Rangers were. I knew what like SF and Green Berets were, so I thought that was cool, but I didn't know what Ranger Battalion was. And so he said, that's got an airborne, it's got an airborne school, and you can go. Because I told him I wanted to go to the 101st. And he's like, yeah, that'll get you there, And so I ended up going through that process, got about 3/4 of the way through OSUT, and they were like, who has a Ranger contract? And at that point, I knew what it was. I said, I do. So who wants to give it up? I said, I do. I said, I wanted to get out of TRADOC and into the regular Army as quick as I could.
Mm-hmm.
The joke is that probably 75 or 80% of my company went to the 101st in basic training, and the rest of us got scattered about, and about 3 or 4 of us went to 3rd ID. So
it makes no sense.
Vicious
but it
cycle,
makes perfect
I guess.
sense.
It makes sense and doesn't make sense at the same time.
Well, that's why it makes sense, because it's the Army.
Because it doesn't make any sense. It's like they they use those Ranger contracts and airborne contracts so fluidly in basic training. It's like there's almost no point in taking one when you like sign up, because you will if you have a high PT score in basic training, you will be offered
one. Yeah.
If you go infantry, they'll be like, hey, would you like to do this,
folks?
I know a lot of our maintainers would get offered 160th contracts if they were pretty squared away in their
that's a good place to go for a support dude or dudette.
Yeah,
that would have been a good place for me to go to if I wasn't already doing other things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good organization. I got some friends over there, and they take really good care of their people. So,
yep,
nice.
But all right, well, here we are with welcome to another wonderful episode of the Panjwai podcast. Our guest today is Major Emily Tucker. Emily is on active duty, so we're gonna try to be really careful and make sure we don't make her look bad. But she trusts us enough to join us on here. So, Emily, welcome.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. We usually kick these things off in a certain fashion, and we're going to try to stick to it. Kind of give us a little bit about your background, how you end up joining the Army, how you end up choosing your career field, and kind of what brought you to Kandahar and Panjwai in 2012.
Yeah. that all happened pretty quick, really. I joined the Army out of college. I went to OCS. I thought I had my life figured out, but I went to school in North Carolina and went to Methodist University, which is right outside Fort Bragg. And that was the first time that I was exposed to the military. So saw a bunch of people in the Army there, and they inspired me to join. I worked in my previous career field for about a year before finally committing to enlisting. And I enlisted in 2009 to go to basic training. And then I shipped in 2010. So fall of 2010. Went to basic training, went to OCS. That was an experience for a civilian to go through and get a commission within 6 months. That was pretty fast. And then I ended up becoming transportation. I wanted to be in logistics, and I picked transportation because out of all the jobs I could do deployed, I wanted to do one that I could actually get out of a base. So I picked transportation over maintenance or over warehousing, like quartermaster. So did that, ended up going to my lieutenant school, and then was working for someone in the transportation school that had connections at HRC, and they were able to help get me to my number one choice, which was Fort Lewis. And so I was pinpointed to 3-2, now 1-2 SBCT. So the Stryker Brigade there. And then I ended up in the BSB, which is 296 BSB. And they didn't have FSCs. So we were all in one giant battalion. It was probably like over 500 people. And we supported the whole brigade. And then that was about Thanksgiving time in 2011. And some of the brigade had deployed around Christmas or around that time. And then the rest of it, probably 3/4 of the brigade or 2/3 of the brigade, did a follow-on. We followed on in March. So some of the brigade, to include the headquarters, went for a year. And then we only went for the 9-month rotation. We were one of the first ones to switch from that 12-month to 9-month rotation.
Yeah, I believe we were one of the first to do that as well.
Yeah.
Like the
So I
whole
think the unit
brigade.
we replaced had a
12-monther.
year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I got to the unit, they assessed that I was extremely young in my knowledge base. I was like pretty much the equivalent of a civilian in ACUs. That was before we had OCPs. And
those things are awful.
Yeah. So they kind of like just assessed me for a little bit and saw that I guess I was dependable. And then they put me in the convoy commander slot to run convoys downrange, but I was the platoon leader for our security platoon. So the security platoon supported all of the resupply convoys for the entire brigade, and then all of the units that we supported. So we called ourselves Combined Task Force Arrowhead. So we called ourselves that because we had other people underneath us, like the Romanian contingent, and then you guys were awesome. We also supported at least one company from 2-2, and there's probably plenty others that I am leaving out. But that's kind of like how I got there. It was pretty fast and furious.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Very similar to my army path to Sperwan Ghar. I mean,
Yeah. I feel like
almost to a T, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost easier that way.
I believe so. I think and we actually talked about this the other day, because we're a mechanized infantry company. They don't walk around, so over time these mechanized infantry companies, they get a little bit complacent in terms of their traditional infantry skills,
i.e. fat and driving around in tanks.
Well, I picked trucks for a reason, so I don't blame you guys.
But right before the deployment, we were trying to approximate at least half of our platoon, if not 75%, were brand new, either from other units or had just PCS to Fort Stewart, straight out of basic training. I mean, to the point where we had maybe 3 CIBs in our entire platoon,
Maybe.
and 3 people that had maybe 10 people that had even deployed at all. So
Much
we were
less
really,
deployed to
really, really,
Afghanistan.
really young.
Yeah.
And I think
fresh.
it benefited us, because I know for me, I was never in better shape than I was at that point.
Yeah.
I was never more prepared to go on a deployment like that at that point. So, and also mentally, I was never more prepared to go on a deployment because like
there's
you get
also
out of
no
training,
there's also
you're like,
no
let's go.
frame of reference. You
Also
didn't
that.
have anything to cast it against when you went. So, I mean, did you find that to be a strength or something that didn't work out for you, Emily?
Yeah.
Whenever you deployed.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was pretty gosh darn civilian when I showed up to my unit. So I had a perception, but at the same time, I was like really open-minded because I didn't have any accurate perception. And I knew that. So I really listened. I know this is so funny, but my senior drill sergeant, I'm going to send this to him. He like would just be like, hey, just listen to your NCOs. And I'm like, all right, drill sergeant. And like he met up with us at OCS. He was there for Pathfinder. And he said the same thing. I get to my first unit. I message him like on email and I'm like, hey, what should I do? He's like, just listen to your platoon sergeant, listen to your NCOs. And like that was really what I did. And that I can like echo that on. And so that really helped me out a lot. Not having any preconceived notions.
I feel like that's the most universal advice that junior officers get is listen to your NCOs.
Yeah, dude, they just got to listen to it.
Just got to listen. But
And they got to
so
find
many
good
of them are
NCOs
like,
too.
they're like selective listening. It's like, I want to listen to NCO about this, but not this.
But I also feel like there's a danger in that too, because some of your NCOs
Also
don't know
true.
what the fuck they're talking about.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
So
No,
you gotta-
I think I knew so little that I was just like trying to absorb everything.
Sure.
And then I would be like, should we do this or this? And then and they would give me some COAs and I'd be like, all right, well, that one sounds better than that one, So,
Sure.
but it's definitely a team effort.
Yeah. Well, I know in my fast and furious run up to arriving in Kandahar and Panjwai, I was just eagerly absorbing all the information that I could about where I was going. We were talking about reading books, Lines of Kandahar, Bear Went Over the Mountain, like anything I can get my hands on that in my mind would prepare me, thinking that for some reason as a PFC it mattered if I had this contextual information.
Yeah. I watched
but
that.
what were you hearing, or what were you doing to prepare yourself?
I mean, it was a pretty intimidating picture that was painted by the NCOs that had experience. And then, just a lot of IED, counter IED training.
Did you get to do the one at CAF? The little IED
the one
thing?
with all of the
lane.
yellow
Yes.
oil jugs. The palm oil jugs.
Oh yeah.
And the pressure
That's actually
plates.
one thing they got right. I'll give them credit on that one.
Yeah.
I got some stories about oil jugs and convoys. They're not. It's kind of funny. But it's only funny because, it's making fun of myself.
Because they
but
didn't explode.
Yeah, they didn't explode. But they were really intimidating looking.
They were. With a little 25-cent piece of plastic.
Well,
and it caused so
after
much
you
fear.
get like 3 straight days of that CIED training, like anything that moves,
Yeah.
you're like, oh crap. For like the
Oh,
first
listen,
2 weeks
like-
that you're on the road, you're like,
You're not alone there, because like after our first firefight, as we were exfilling out, I remember seeing one. We had been briefed on these palm oil jugs. I remember seeing one of those, and it was just like sitting up out on the ground, like next to a go
totally
pad.
like by itself. Probably.
And I was like, "Is that an ID?" I didn't know better at the time.
And that's part of it. You were talking about having like a young crew. We were in the same boat out of 45-ish, give or take, like maybe 10 people had deployed before. So
Yeah.
it's kind of terrifying. And thankfully, all of our NCOICs, like our assistant convoy commanders, they all deployed before, but only one of the 3 security platoon leaders had deployed before. And I leaned like super heavily on him for everything. He was a prior E6, but super kind and understanding and like, but yeah, so we were really young. And we were also made up all the MOSs in the rainbow. We had like, my driver was a cook. We had mechanics. We had most of our 88 mics. So like the actual truck drivers were running the resupply trucks. So we would have like mechanics of all types. We had fuelers. We had water dogs. The 2 other...
Mixed bag.
Yeah, the 2 other convoy commanders, one was like actually ordnance, which is like maintenance, pretty much.
Right.
The other one was, I don't know, he was probably ordnance too, but he wasn't transporter. So that's just how we roll.
even with this mixed bag of folks that you were bringing to the field there, what exactly was y'all's mission in regard to what was going on in Panjwai?
Yeah, basically just resupply and retrograde of anything that has to do with supporting the maneuver infantry battalions. So we would run 3 main routes to support the entire brigade. Obviously, we would come down and see you guys in Panjwai. We would go to 123's headquarters. We go to brigade headquarters, and then 117 Infantry had a headquarters down there as well at Soja. And then we would go north, and we would support our field artillery and the Cav Squadron up in Kalat. And then we'd go down to Sperwan. So really, those were like 3 MSRs that all kind of spiderwebbed out from Kandahar. And we had 3 truck squads with 3 security squads, and then we would all rotate. So I made my first trip down to Panjwai with 25th ID on our RIP, and that was probably in the end of March, I want to say.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, end of March.
Mm-hmm.
And then so we did a few missions down there just so I could get the lay of the land. But then I ended up running missions up north to Kalat. And then I ended up going back down to Panjwai probably in June, July, August timeframe. So, but it was at night. So it wasn't super hot. And it was at night. So it wasn't quite as busy on the roads. So that was like done for a specific reason, because we had such large convoys and we had to go through Kandahar city. We were only allowed to travel at night. So yeah, we'd bring you guys everything we could to make your mission easier. Ammo, food, water,
milk,
class 9, so like repair parts.
yeah.
Yeah. Food, water, milk. What else?
When you went to Kalat, did you ever see that fortress in Kalat? The one that was built by Alexander the Great?
Yeah, like every time.
Because it was cool.
Yeah, it was in between 137 Logman and then 114 was at Apache. So it was like in the middle before they shut down Logman. It was just like up.
It's like, on that hill.
Yeah, up on that hill and that right by that traffic circle. Yeah.
It looks like it was built like out of modern concrete yesterday. It's just absolutely astounding that is something that is thousands of years old.
Yeah. And that's just
and
like,
of course, now there's a freaking base built into it. It's like, guys, come on. Like satellite dishes on top of it. Like, come on, man.
If we aren't using it, maybe somebody else will be using it. That's all I'm going to say.
Probably true. Yeah.
But the really neat thing, like the last thing I'll say about the routes and like where we went, was like every single route was 100% different than another route. Like, and you probably know that, Curtis, with like the terrain was so different. Mm-hmm. Like Sperwan, it was like the red desert and those like crazy smooth rocks that were like domed rock formations, giant though. And then up north, it was like high desert with like the beautiful mountains on the horizon and that river, the Argandab. Mm-hmm. Isn't that? Yep. Is that it?
That's it.
Yeah.
That's the one.
It was always dried out when I went up there, thankfully, because we would have to like go down into it.
Oh, really?
And then like the grape huts and the vast like green foliage in Panjwai.
Yeah.
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 It's very different.
I think the geographic and topographic diversity in Afghanistan is astounding. It really is.
Crazy.
Because Panjwai is only at like 2,000 feet above sea level or something like that.
I
looked it up recently.
Or something
it's
like
not that high, basically. Yeah. Versus the top of the mountains in Afghanistan are another 10,000, 13,000 feet above Panjwai.
I think the highest mountain in Afghanistan is like 26,000, 25,000 feet.
So like, I mean, you have this incredible range of geography there and topography. And your position, you got to see a lot of Afghanistan, a lot of southwestern Afghanistan and Kandahar, which is kind of neat because something that we've talked about a little bit here is how, because of how focused our mission was, our little chunk of Afghanistan was so small that we would get myopic in tunnel vision and just really focus on that one place and think about that one village or that one little stretch of road. But for your perspective, you're getting to see a significant portion of the country, and that reminds me a lot of my deployment to Iraq, because like we saw all of northern Iraq because we drove everywhere, you know.
Yeah.
Or like my 17 deployment. I mean, I've seen. I think I measured out the square mileage. It was immense. You know, as far east as the border with Pakistan up in Jalalabad, as far north as Kabul, a little bit north of that, and as far west as the Iranian border, down to the southern border in Kandahar. Like, Afghanistan is a stunningly beautiful country, and it is a shame that it's not possible to just go there and enjoy how beautiful it is.
I know. I always wish I kind of was able to get up north sometime, but
same.
But we did get snow in Kalat, and that was always a big pain.
Really?
So
wow.
Yeah.
That sounds.
It was
so
not fun.
I think we saw snow once, like right before we left. It randomly like snowed like
in
the
December.
morning, and then it was gone. It was gone immediately.
When did you guys leave?
December 7th.
I think 7th. I think that was when I left. We were on the same flight.
Maybe. Yeah.
Of course,
I
was
don't know
on.
if we left Afghanistan on the 7th or if we got back on the 7th. That
I can't remember either, but that sounds familiar. I was on Torch, so I was like first on ground, and I was on trail. You know how that goes. It was like, sweet, sign me up.
Well, we were the trail element for our. Well, that was weird because we've talked about how we were detached from 164, and then moved over to 123. But once we left Sperwan Ghar and we were done combat operations, we got like re-tagged back on to 164.
Yeah.
And fell back under their planning, which meant that nothing went the way
like,
it was supposed to.
Yeah, it's okay.
So
that's all I'll say about that.
Yeah.
We love you guys.
we claim 123.
Yeah, I know. I love it.
For the most part. And 164 has a wonderful heritage. I don't hate the 164 heritage.
I'll always remember 164. Because you guys
please tell me a wonderful story about something 164 did at Kandahar.
Well, I mean, they were just always in charge of the QRF when we got IDF. So I spent many a night / early morning in a bunker thinking about 164 as they were trying to find the point of origin for where the IDF came from.
Oh, man. We could expand on that indefinitely.
No,
we shouldn't pull that thread.
That's our last. That's our last podcast.
That's our last podcast episode. We know what we're about.
No, it's all good. They kept us safe, and they were actually they were in our little like housing AO, or like where we bedded down, our little Chew Nation on what was it called? We were in like South Park is the name of the compound area that we were like had our setup at. So yeah, they were really, when they moved in like right next door, and they would like roll their mat V's like right up next to our Chews. It was kind of cool. I was like, all right, you do you, boo boo. I was like, but yeah, that's about all I know. And then I know you guys obviously were at Sperwan Ghar, and we would like pass and wave at y'all.
Yeah.
Well, it was usually pretty dark by the time we passed you guys at night.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking earlier in the pre-interview about when the convoys would roll onto the COP, and I can remember very, very few times, because usually I was either on guard or I was asleep. So
yeah,
and I know they had like, we had like our own detachment. We had the mayor's cell, and it was their responsibility to deal with like
receiving convoys and stuff.
So helping unload and stuff. And if there were people around that weren't doing something, then they would grab them, which meant that I made it a point never to be around, seen, not doing anything.
Our guys pretty much did it all, because we'd roll up in the middle of the night and pretty much everyone would be asleep.
Yeah.
So we would just have like, we would make comms with who we needed to make comms with, but that was pretty much it. Like pretty much a point of contact to let them know their stuff got there. But we were pretty used to being independent at 2 a.m.
Well, no, it's interesting when you mentioned that you were spending most of the convoys were at night, and we've talked about it before. It's odd that the Taliban just refused to be nocturnal. You know, we never got into a gunfight at night.
It's so strange.
They even would turn off the IEDs at night. It's just like when the sun went down, they're like, "Hey man, truce for the next couple hours," and then they would just kind of hold off. But dusk and dawn, they would fight until they were bored. But in the dead of the night, man, those guys, I guess they just liked sleeping, and they didn't like not being able to see.
Yeah, we were really thankful for that. I guess, they just knew that you guys own the night. and that if you did mess with us, then they would be dealt with accordingly. So they didn't want to have any of that, because we were pretty we were very lucky that we were never directly engaged, and we had a very relatively quiet time in regard to like taking any contact. So
yeah, it's
I mean,
can't
honestly,
complain about that.
That really surprises me. I mean, I'm not surprised that you guys didn't get hit by small arms, because, like we were just saying, the Taliban didn't mess around at night because they knew that they didn't stand a chance, really. Mm-hmm. But I can't believe you guys got lucky on the IED front, Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, because that stretch to Kandahar is dangerous for big.
Yeah,
dangerous.
We just drive really fast. No.
That's what he does too.
Yeah. No, we, I mean, and really, because it was hardball, like, we can't check every culvert.
Yeah.
We had these like sweet robots that we could check out.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, really?
It would take us 3 days to get down there if we did that. So, so we would just go, like, obviously we were looking out for anything that looked unusual. Mm-hmm. There's really only so much you can see at night when you're going like 45. So your headlights can only reach so far. But I think too, like, we did roll pretty deep, and we did have some intimidating cruiser weapons, and I mean, we were as aggressive as we could be, on the road.
Yeah.
But at night, there's really not that many people out. We could zip through Kandahar city. So there was like 2 main routes that we would take down to you guys. We would either cut through all the way through Kandahar city straight to Hyena on Route 1, and then head south, which was super easy. I think we had like a couple traffic circles. And then, or we would go back on Black Ice. I think Black Ice was like in the city. But I can't remember the one that parts off of Hyena. I try to remember, but I can't. But I know Black Ice was up there.
So the one that goes south at the district center, and then it goes down. It's got the back way into Calf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was like our 2 main routes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny. When I went back in 2017, they asked us to do a route recon from Passab all the way down to Calf, and they wanted to do that route. And luck would have it, I had driven it before, 5 years prior, but it was hilarious me trying to recount that route from the air. Like, turn left. No, shit, go back to the intersection. I got it wrong. Like, I mean, we figured it out. Just, trying to
figured
follow
it
the path,
out.
but
that
it
sounds
was
terrifying.
Well, I mean, I was in an Apache helicopter. There was no risk to me.
I was like, what?
But I mean, if I'd been asked to drive it, I think I probably could have figured it out, just because of the ground level perspective. I'm like, we turn left here and we go right.
Well, the roads too, being paved, like we did. Once you got up to the city on the back route, it wasn't so paved, but that was probably the sketchiest part. Was like we skirt the southeast side of the city, and it was like dirt rutted out right next to a giant culvert with like that with the like mud walls on the other side for the compounds, and you had nowhere to go. So it was like,
what I remember about that route is there was that really deep culvert, and it had no bridges over it. You actually had to drive all the way to the end of the culvert, and then basically make a U-turn around the culvert, and then go back the other side and go back the way you came.
It's very productive.
And that little U-turn around there was probably, I don't know how there wasn't an IED in that every single time, because it was the greatest choke point in the entire area for vehicles.
Yeah.
Because no vehicle can make that. Like, a truck would have to make like a
300-point turn.
Yeah, 300-point turn. It was horrible. And even with the mine roller and the MAT Vs, you almost, it was rare to make it on one try.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was pretty much it. And we would hit, normally every time it would be Masum Ghar, Zangabad, and obviously they resupplied to you guys. And then we would come back up and hit Soja, which I want to say...
It's a field now.
Is it a field now? Yeah, it was on its way to be
obliterated.
It was on its way to being a field, let's be honest, back in 2012.
Huge base. I never understood that base. It was gigantic. Like,
they had a firing point
there. And they had
there.
no stuff in there.
No, but they had a firing point. They had a 777. I only know this because they would shoot it and it would scare me very, very bad. They wouldn't tell me they were firing. And they had really good food for some reason. They had
did.
like contracted food, and their fruit was delish.
Yeah, they hung out for a while, way more than I think that they were relevant, but probably because there were contracts that extended it to a certain date and they couldn't break
So
it.
they had to occupy it because of the
Right.
contracts.
Right.
Oh, I see.
That seems, yeah.
I will not
So
confirm or
you-
deny
Yeah.
as the logistician.
So a big part of your mission was supplying those units in the Horn, also Zari. So Masum Ghar and Zangabad in particular. What was your relationship like with the two units that were there?
Yeah, so I'll start with brigade headquarters first. At Masum Ghar, we just like 1, 2, 3 really. We resupplied the same thing, so like mail, pretty much mail every other trip, food, water, repair parts to repair all the strikers, for the maintenance guys to take care of stuff. Sometimes Masum Ghar was like a good place for the chaplain underground, and I would bring massive amounts of K-cups to the chaplain at brigade headquarters. But really, we would just roll in there at night and just go to work. So we do the same thing at 1, 2, 3, but the difference with brigade headquarters is I would walk up to the TOC and check in with everyone. And I would go to the brigade S4 shop and steal all their food. So that was unique. I think they knew I was doing it, but it's okay.
That's customary. That is what you do when you go to somebody else's base. Is you raid
you're
their,
asleep?
You do.
you raid them,
especially if they're asleep. And
especially if they're fob too. Yeah, especially if they're asleep.
So that was pretty much all we did there. It was pretty easy to navigate because it was a pretty good setup. It just had the HLZ in the center, so we would roll in and loop around the HLZ and just go out to the next
Park
place.
around
So,
the HLZ and do what you need to do. And
yeah. And
the
then
worst HLZ on any fob ever.
What was that?
Maintain. It's the worst HLZ I've ever seen on a
It's
fob
so small.
ever.
That's where I got promoted
Super small.
to
It's-
first
it's really
lieutenant.
at an angle.
Yeah,
You
on
got
the
promoted
HLZ.
You got promoted on the HLZ at Masum Ghar?
Yeah, we tried to
really?
go up on the mountain to draw fire. No, I'm kidding. We tried to go up there, but I don't know why we didn't. I think we were just short on time. And then so I got promoted there. It was a super sweet photo op, to be honest.
Very cool.
Yeah. But so we go from there and then we go down to 1, 2, 3, and they were my favorite. And I don't know why. I think just there's probably a ton of reasons. They were really nice in the talk, and they were really easy to support, and they were super appreciative. And so, it doesn't take much to win me over.
Yeah.
But they were just really nice. So I always looked out for them. And same thing there. The thing that was unique about ZBAD was they always had battle damage strikers every time. So every time we went down there, we were usually bringing them a new striker and then picking up one that was destroyed. So that would usually take longer than at other places just because it was like a puzzle and you're trying to fit a blown up striker that is in op and drag it and put it on the back of a het, which we weren't even trained on. We weren't even trained on how to use those vehicles until we got downrange. So that was like an awesome feat for the distro guys that they were able to do that. But unfortunately, sometimes that could take like an hour or a couple hours. So that specific part of the mission would always be what determined how long our overall mission would be. So,
Zangabad is a very unique fob in that it is deeply entrenched in enemy territory.
Yeah.
Most fobs are kind of set back with a lot of standoff. They got big open spaces between them and any kind of threat area. But to drive to Zangabad is literally driving through the hottest AO in that area.
And the nearest grape hut that they could lob RPGs from is like 100 meters from the
right
front
there.
gate. It's
right
like
there.
right in the thick of it. So it is unique in that regard. It almost feels like a cop.
It
that
does.
fob.
Yeah.
Well, I think I only went there during the day once, and I had been on a mission. It was the same time that I went to Sperwan Ghar, actually. So we were all over the place that day, and so I'd only been there once during the day. So I never really got to take it all in. And even that one time, I was in the back of someone else's truck, so I didn't even get to see anything when I was driving there during the daytime. But so that was probably a good thing. Probably also good that we didn't truly understand what you guys were we knew what you were doing every day. And we went to all the Purple Heart ceremonies. Like, our battalion would go to Purple Heart ceremonies at the Roll 3, and we would go to Ram ceremonies. So, like, don't get it wrong. We knew what you guys were doing, but I didn't know what was happening in regards to, like, operations. So I didn't get to see all of that. It was probably a good thing, or I would have been more nervous than I already was. But really, once we started heading south from Highway 1, like, we just kind of turned on, and, you know, everything got a little more serious. The chatter kind of died down on the radio, and you're just like, your alerts up. And then once you pass Masum Ghar is like a different level. You're at like a 12. And then, you're just like, we would be driving along and we'd be moving pretty quick, and I would just like be looking for who knows what, but just at the same time kind of thinking like, wow, this is crazy. Yeah. At some points. But
you weren't wrong for doing so. I mean, there was some, that was pretty spicy territory down there.
Yeah, we were, I mean, we were really lucky. Yeah. We would just, we were trying to get from point A to point B as quickly and as efficiently as possible without anything happening to us or us causing damage to anyone else, and get all the stuff to you guys so you guys could do your job. So that was super rewarding for me, that as a young 24-year-old transportation officer, like, not a lot of people get to have that experience. And then it's definitely taught me to appreciate things. It's taught me that, what we do as a profession is truly life and death. And I've been able to take that forward with me. So I'm really thankful for my experiences. And like I said before, really thankful I could support you guys, and we could support you guys and what you guys do. So
and it was important. Yeah. We've mentioned a few times, the supply issues that we ran into a couple times on the deployment, and we didn't realize until we talked to you that you were actually part of one of those rescue operations.
Oh yeah, rescue.
AKA delivering of the milk.
Yeah, the milk. You guys were black on milk.
Yeah,
it's not good.
Somebody complained to a 2-star general that we didn't have enough milk, and that created an urgent last-minute mission for you guys. So we apologize.
No, it happens. Really, like food and milk, apparently, like fresh fruit, like those are the things that really make a huge difference in morale.
War as hell.
Yeah. And that was a good one. And my buddy JD was actually on that mission, and he was kind of the guy that he was our pinch hitter. So whenever there was like a one-off mission that wasn't in our normal lineup, he would get like called off the bench. And so he actually ran that one, but he was telling me about how he brought y'all like a ton of milk. Like, we heard you needed milk, and we just gave you enough milk for like 2 years. And that you guys were like, no, we're good. We don't need any more milk. And he's like, no, you're going to take it. Like, it's on the truck. You're taking it. So hopefully there's still milk there.
Yeah. Well, no. There's not. There's nothing there now.
Don't tell the GO, please. No, I'm kidding.
What's funny, and you should definitely relay this to JD, is probably the reason we're like, oh my God, we don't need this much milk, is in addition to that supply of milk, he also flew a Black Hawk out to us literally the next morning with like a pallet of milk.
That's amazing.
So like General Abrams is a real G. Like, he took care of us immediately. It was a pallet of milk and a couple cases of 40 millimeter grenades.
That's so cool. It's unfortunate that happened. Like that it got to GO level. We couldn't figure it out. But cereal does not taste the same. So I get it.
No. Yeah. Well, but I mean, when a general asks you, like, what do you need that you don't have, and you're sitting in a DFAC, look around at food.
I would be like, I want a massage table and a masseuse.
We also have...
No. Probably not milk.
I'd be like for a massage. That might have been
shooting for the moon.
Yeah.
But no, I get it. Sometimes milk is like... Yeah. Like, when you want your cereal, it's the real deal. But it is, I'm not making light of it. It's just, it's funny that we have that connection. Like, oh, I heard of that. And you guys deserve it for sure. I blame 1, 2, 3. I'm just kidding.
So
we'll bring you whatever you need.
It's we're not really sure who to blame for that one. Because 1, 2, 3 traditionally took really, really, really good care of us.
For the milk. We know who to blame for for the 40 mic.
For the 40 millimeter, we knew who to blame. That was squarely on our OG command at 164, who did not believe us
that you needed
when we
it.
told them that we were shooting that much 40 millimeter. So to the XO,
it would have been too easy for us to get you some.
Well, if I had your Instagram account back then, I just would have DM'd you like, "Hey, let's get some milk. Let's go.
We need some 40 mic bag." I'll be like, "Put it on the truck."
Put it on the truck. Yeah, that was a pretty wild connection. We asked him for bombs too, and he did give us some of those too. So
hopefully they were accurate.
Well, as accurate as they were allowed to be. They bombed open fields for us.
Oh, cool.
Thanks.
I support it.
Show of force.
Yeah, show of force.
Yeah, I love it. That's great.
I'm okay with it. Things went boom, and we cheered. It's fine.
This is General Abrams, to be clear.
Yes,
yeah,
General
I know.
Abrams.
He signed
And
my
just-
end of tour award. I was like,
Yeah.
General Abrams.
He was the one that gave us milk, 40 mic, and let us drop bombs.
Give them milk.
and let us drop bombs. Yep.
Let them drink milk.
He undid
Hashtag
everything.
General
that
Abrams.
Yeah. There should be a morale patch floating around there, like, you drink milk. That'd be
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
a
It's just
Sperwan
with his
Ghar
photo on it,
specific.
like
Yeah.
knife pain though. I support it. It's good.
That'd be pretty great, actually. I'm 100%
I think we're gonna have him
behind
on.
this
I think if we keep doing this the right way, that he'll agree to join us.
Yeah,
he does follow us on Twitter, so
That is amazing.
no big deal.
Yeah, no, JD was telling me about his connection to your unit, and he's like, well, it's just because he was in it. Like, not just because, but like probably has a little bit to do with it, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
so neat.
No, 100%. Yeah.
I love
100%.
it. When I'm a general of a geographic combatant command, I'm going to do the same thing. No, I'm not, because it's never going to happen. But if I were,
he had a little bit of a soft spot for
Yeah.
his
We were
third
his
ID.
golden boys, man, because we were like
Yeah.
the only people in third ID in Afghanistan at that time that was like getting in the shit.
doing it,
You know?
doing it.
And we
No
got there
tanks needed.
a couple months
Yeah.
before. So they did a brigade deployment right as we were leaving. So one of our brigades did a deployment to Afghanistan, and then another one did. So we were a little bit ahead of the brigade deployments. So we were like the test bed. We're kind of it was us and one other battalion, and they were supporting ODAs. 164 was doing their CAF rocket stuff. We had a company at Kenjikak, which is really near Sojo, and they were getting into it too.
Yeah.
And then there was us, who was just, we were attached to 123 and just getting lit up. So he came and visited us a few times, just because we were so high profile for him being the third ID unit in that area. At least 3 or 4 times he visited.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And it's such a unique place to be. I mean, it's just like kind of cool to visit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Although the
Sperwan
one
Ghar-
time I did visit you guys, I'm sorry, but I was really tired and I took a nap on the back of the MRAP ramp, and I didn't even go anywhere. I just sat on the truck because it was the same day I got promoted, and I was a sleepy lieutenant.
About when was that?
I think that was August, because I was at the probably towards the end when I was done running missions down there. So I went on a mission the night before, and then I got back to CAF, and I took a quick shower, and then I hopped on JD's truck, sat in the back of his truck, and then we drove all around. And that was just for my promotion. And the battalion commander, Colonel Siegel, was doing kind of like a BFC. He would go visit the BSB soldiers that were attached forward.
Mm-hmm.
So like at brigade headquarters and at 123. And then I think you guys were actually having a ceremony that day
Probably.
for someone. So that's
did
what I
a
think we
lot, yeah.
went for. And that's
Okay.
also, I think I wasn't allowed to go. I think JD was like, no, like it's just going to be me and the colonel. So they like went off, and then we just like all kind of chilled on the truck.
Huh.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. That was the story, but I was really
Yeah.
tired, and I fell asleep in the sun, and I got a sunburn. So
Well, I can tell you, I've spent many times sleeping on, around, or in vehicles, sitting at a base that I had no business being there while somebody else was doing something.
yeah, okay.
So
So,
I can
I'm in good
relate.
company.
You're in good company.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but I'm kind of bummed because I heard I heard from my buddies, and then I heard from you guys like how awesome of a setup you had.
It was
But
pretty sweet. We had an
it's all right.
SUR, no big deal.
I know.
we had computers. We had internet.
We had
computers.
one computer. No.
No, for where we were, and we've
It's a
beaten
good
this
setup.
horse to death, but we had a really
good
nice
setup.
setup.
I heard
Really,
you guys
really
had
nice
an
setup.
awesome dock. That's what my buddy JD kept saying. He's like, no, they're medical setup. They're med shed. So that's like good.
Yeah.
You guys.
Yeah, we had a phenomenal
reputation.
Actually, our medical center was better than the medical center they had at the district center.
Yeah.
It really was.
Yeah. Which
For
is
sure.
sad.
Yeah, but we would just drive by y'all. Sometimes you guys had a Mat V set up somewhere. Homeland Security, maybe. I don't know. I would see your icons on the BFT and be like, oh, there they are.
Yep.
Yeah. Usually that was when we had additional security beefed up when the green on blue thing was really bad.
Oh, yeah, that thing.
When that ramped up that summer.
Yeah, that was not very comforting.
Yeah, how did that affect your guys' operations?
So it was interesting because when that incident happened out in Marineland at Leatherneck, right? When they did that, they breached the base.
Mm-hmm. Yep, they
that
destroyed
happened.
most of the Marine Corps' Harrier fleet.
Yeah, that coupled with the green on blue within the brigade, like tensions were super high.
Yeah.
So like we went to the whole like three-man buddy team, fire team.
Guardian Angels.
Yeah, I say fire team loosely. For like whenever we were moving around, and then we would keep guys on an open turret whenever we were conducting resupply, just as an overwatch. And then I actually like did much better with bringing a soldier with me on the base, like on different bobs at night, just so I wasn't like caught alone. Because like especially at like Zangabad and Soja,
they have an A&A contingent there on the base.
yeah, and it was a little more sketchy. And I just remember going out right after some of them happened and just having that weird feeling like when you're like on a base. I remember we were coming back home once from visiting you guys down south, and we were in Kandahar on that back route, so it was like not ideal. And the Het, one of the wheels on the trailer of the Het brakes got caged, so it like was smoking, and it probably could have caught on fire. And I straight up asked my N2IC, I'm like, do we stop in front of the AMP compound, or do we like push through the city and get out of the city? Like, where is the strategically more secure place to pull our convoy over? And we stopped outside the AMP compound because we, hoped that it was safe. Thankfully, it was safe. Nothing happened. But the fact that you had, like, that wasn't a concern that we had at the beginning of the deployment.
Sure.
So that was definitely something that changed over time. It was kind of unfortunate.
A lot of the convoys that you guys ran, you had local national vehicles inside the convoy, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, did the threat, like the insider threat, kind of combine
come from within the convoy?
Yeah.
No. So they do a really good job, especially at CAF, which is where we get the trucks come to us of going through like a ton of security. We would take their cell phones, and then we would take their the little, like, they ping on the, why can't it, like, oh, I'm the worst logistician ever, but I'm not really a logistician anymore, so it doesn't count. They're like tags that, like, when you hit certain things, it'll like scan them so they can track where they're at. Oh, man. Yeah. Okay, just edit that out, please. No.
The power of editing.
No. What is it?
Right
RFID tags, kind of.
Oh, okay.
They're kind of like RFID tags, but they're like transponders, and they're on commercial trucks. But we would kind of confiscate those too, so they couldn't be plugged in and have power to them.
Right.
But they were more of a liability than a threat, I guess, if that makes sense.
Right.
Just because their trucks would always break, and they would drive really, really slow at very, very inconvenient times.
Sure.
Or they would just kind of cut off and do their own thing in Kandahar. Like, we would have them just turn when we would turn left, but they would go straight type thing. So that was always fun. But they were terrified. They were probably more scared than we were to be in our convoys, at least the ones that we had, because they didn't want to get caught by the Taliban for supporting us and working with us. So especially going to Panjwai, like, I haven't had more terrified local national drivers than the ones we had going down to Panjwai. They just didn't want to go down there because it was more dangerous. But we would try to explain to them they would be safe. like a bubble of protection from the
Sure.
IEDs, like that's common knowledge stuff, but just try to explain it to them. And then we would just tell them to drive fast. If they drove slow, we were going to leave them. And they usually listen to that. So sometimes we had to like give them gentle reminders with our bumpers. But it was just like I said it before,
Gentle
if you
nudge.
are not rubbing, you are not racing. So
Yes.
but
Well, they probably also didn't like going because often they got left. They
That's
had
right.
to stay at the cops and the fobs and
There was
wait for
one-
their next escort. So they'd be sitting on Sperwan Ghar for 4 days without their cell phone.
yeah, and they needed an escort.
Mhm.
And there was one that my buddy JD told me about that he wouldn't go to Panjwai. He didn't want to go to Zangabad because he didn't want to get left there. And we told him, well, I didn't tell him, but JD was like, all right, I'll bring you back. And they got him back, but I don't know if that was the way his truck was still in Panjwai. So I'm not sure if that was legit, but we had to make the mission happen. Like, I think working in that organization, I learned that we never say no. Like we always try to find a way to say yes. And I don't think we ever really said no. We did some crazy support missions. We moved 520 and I think it was 117. I'm not
Sounds
sure.
right.
We totally flipped them from like Pasab to Spin Boldak and like relocated 2 battalions like on the fly while we were still supporting the entire brigade at the same time. So we always did our best to support the brigade. We had some hiccups, some hiccups along the way, but we all came back in one piece. And so that was really good. And then we all learned a lot, I think, and grew as people, all that good stuff.
Yeah. Well, that was one thing we kind of hit on a little bit in the pre-interview, and Luke and I have talked about this a little bit, is the difference of experiences, and what that really means. And one thing that I've always observed is that everybody works. Everybody works hard. You're talking about moving entire battalions across AEOs. For work. I can't even imagine how awful that
sounds
of a
terrible.
logistical nightmare that is. I would rather walk 20 kilometers in Panjwai
Definitely.
than try to wrap my mind around moving an entire fob
It
across
took a
an
couple
AO.
weeks. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I think about like the logistics of when they were closing bases down or like reconsolidating to the fobs, I'm like, I'm so glad I had nothing to do with that. Nothing sounds more awful than that. So when people talk about the difference of experiences in war or in Panjwai or in Afghanistan, you have to take into consideration, you didn't do what they did and they didn't do what you did, but it doesn't mean that everybody wasn't like sucking
Yeah.
and hating their life at some point. And if you
Yeah.
weren't, then you were in the Air Force. That's fine.
I know. Yeah, no, I really appreciate you saying that because I think that's something I've sometimes have thought about. Like, is my sacrifice as valid as somebody else's? Like it is. Like we all are in the same team. Like I love supporting all the different battalions within the brigade. I loved my guys that helped us make the mission happen. It was pretty stressful running missions if we weren't running a mission, we were preparing for a mission. So we were on the road every day. And although we got really lucky, like it was still kind of stressful and there was still a big possibility of something happening. We did have a really nasty rollover in one of our other squads. We had a MRAP taken off of Highway 1 by I want to say it was like one of those Toyota 4-door SUVs. It was like, I don't know what they're called. It's not a Hilux, but
the Land Cruisers.
yeah, those old school ones.
The one
And,
that they were told if you see one of those, you need to report it because
What?
there's not very many of those in the country.
Nobody told us that. Maybe that's why it took us. They tried to take us out. Yeah, we they were going like probably 50, 55, and they were passing one of our gun trucks on the left, and a bus was coming on the other way. So they cut off the gun truck and they like did a rollover into a wadi at like 55 miles an hour with the open turret. So that wasn't good. So like we didn't hit any IEDs or take any direct fire that actually hit us, but we had some scares, some terrifying incidents. Thankfully everybody walked away. We had the gunner was okay, and my Charlie Med First Sergeant was in the back of the truck, so he was a good witness. He said nobody did anything wrong, so that was good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we still it's still stressful. You still gotta like plan for the worst, hope for the best.
Well, the thing is, you get put into that situation, and you don't get to decide if something happens or it doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean, like Luke said, I'm astounded that you guys didn't get hit by something. I mean,
really
driving
blows
routes
my
that you
mind,
did.
man.
I mean,
Because there was times where I actually like I didn't want to go to CAF because I thought that's like asking
route was
for
too
a
dangerous.
250-pound IED just like fucking rip through your truck, you know?
Yeah,
So-
we would. There was one time that we did go down, and then we came back, and there was a giant hole in the road, and I was like, "Sweet." So that was a little
I
bit of a
remember
gut
that
check.
hole.
Yeah, I remember that hole.
I know where that hole is. That's just you just take Route Black down, you take a little bit of the left, start heading towards Kandahar, and it's on that stretch of road where you find it's one of the few chances you get to open up a Mat V.
Oh
You
yeah,
get to
yeah.
Put it up
That's
against
why
the
they put
governor
it
and get
there.
your 70 miles an hour, but then you have to slow down because of that blast craters in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you're going to hit that really hard. And a lot
We're
of people
totally
get
talking
really
about. I
mad.
thought you were kidding, but we are talking about the exact same one.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we drove past it. We came back like there was nothing there. We came back and we're like, holy crap. So
Big one.
yeah. So yeah, we got into some accidents. You know that Afghan people drive a lot differently than we do. Saw some crazy stuff happen on the roads. Saw some other countries do some crazy things that I won't talk about. But ROEs are all different in NATO. That's the beauty of
Yeah.
it. So so we got to see a lot, and I got to learn a lot, and it really helped shape me into the young field grade officer that I am today. I say that I can't believe I'm a field grade officer. But
And as
it
a reminder,
really-
I guess Emily or Major Tucker, for those of you that are still active duty, is a major.
I know, it's
What,
so
and what are you
bad.
doing right now?
So right now I'm in school. Somehow somebody deemed me worthy of coming to Naval War College, which is in Newport, Rhode Island, and hanging out with a bunch of joint field grades, going to my ILE equivalent. Mostly Navy, but also a ton of Air Force, Marines. Am I missing anyone? I don't think so. Oh, we do have Department of State. So that's kind of neat too. So we have civilians here. They're all super amazing. They bring a different perspective. Great thing about coming here is you get to like not necessarily think about the Army for a whole year. So don't think it could have come at a better time.
Well, I mean, combined with the fact that you're at a Naval War College and also with COVID, when is the last time you wore an Army uniform?
It's been a really long time. It was last fall. I had to do it, and that was like just because I was doing something like special on the side. It didn't have anything to do with what I was doing here. And then before that, I had to do some stuff during COVID for my last organization, but we were on telework most of the time. So probably before that, like July. So I've probably worn a uniform like twice since July.
Nice.
But that's okay. It's a nice break, and I think.
Yeah. You get to pretend like you're a civilian for a little bit.
Oh, it's so amazing. And it's like a real education. Like we have legit like professors. It's not just a bunch of military professors. So it's like, it's such a break. Like I feel like I can think about something for more than 20 minutes. Cause you know how it is in like day-to-day Army. It's like, the world is on fire. Like fix it. And
if we don't find this Connex, the Russians are going to invade and kill everybody.
And if you don't check the box on this PFC, America's going to fall apart at the seams.
it's true. I've seen it happen. No, so it's been super nice. I'm not a logistician anymore, so that's kind of like exciting to think about my future career field in information operations. The gray zone. No, I'm kidding.
What are you able to explain a little bit about what the information operations field is or is becoming?
Yeah. So it is a lot of things. So there's a lot of information related capabilities that make up IO, and I haven't gone to the qualification course yet, so don't hold it against me if I forget any, but it's like psychological operations, electronic warfare, cyber. There's just like I said, MISO. There's just a lot of different things that fall under it, and then IOs are kind of like the expert that coordinates everything. So think of like a conductor of an orchestra, and everything is in perfect tune with one another, and you use those effects to potentially use against an adversary, or you also use it as to plan defensively for us. So I, did 10 years in logistics as a logistician, loved it. It was super fun, but I was ready for a new challenge. And after working in a PSYOP organization, I kind of saw a little bit of that, and I thought it was really fun. So this was just a natural progression for me and for the next 10 years of my career, hopefully, or more if I like it. We'll see. Yeah. So I'll always be a loggy at heart, though, like, because I'm still technically a logistician. It's just my functional area. And I could always go back to logistics, but I just wanted to try something new. So, yeah, hopefully
cool.
that'll be
It sounds
cool.
like a lot of the stuff that you'll be doing is a lot of stuff that was very, very important to what we were doing in Afghanistan in 12,
messaging and all that stuff too.
Messaging, that you're talking about the bubble of safety with the electronic jamming systems. So
are you going to hack Russian Facebook to influence their next election?
I will not confirm or deny. No, I'm kidding.
Spoiler alert, Putin wins.
No. Yeah, I just think that as we move forward, like, we're probably not going to be fighting the same wars we've fought the last 20 years.
Yeah, for sure.
I think digital Cold War is definitely on the horizon.
Yeah, I just have I love training, but I also love deploying. And if I'm going to, I couldn't imagine training for the next 10 years, and not being able to get what we did. To get to do what we did in Panjwai, that's why I joined, not to go to CTC rotations for the rest of my life. But we'll see what happens.
I think it's a pretty common issue right now with going on with the military is that the reality of those deployments is dwindling down to zero rapidly.
Yeah. It's basically
a lot of the guys that have the most experience and gals that have the most experience, they're looking at that patch chart and it's looking really empty. And the opportunity to get to use your experience is just... Yeah.
I think I have like 130 months of dwell time. I'm not kidding. And it's not because I haven't tried.
Yeah.
I was never chasing any deployments, but if I didn't get selected to come to school here, I probably would be back with 4th SFAB doing logistics advising. So, and then before that, I tried to get on any wise tasker under the sun in my previous organization, but the timing just didn't work out. So
it's hard. I mean, everyone that has the flexibility to do so is also doing that. Yeah. Also trying to make moves that can allow. And it's not about, like you said, it's not about deployment chasing. It's just about I want to do my job.
Yeah.
I don't want to go to NTC or JRTC.
Supporting like you guys and guys like you guys was literally the most rewarding thing I've ever done. And like I would go to the USO and like steal 1 million for any soldier boxes. And I would go to different fobs and just like give them to whoever I came across, like lower, like a younger ranking soldier, and that was just like super rewarding. And when soldiers are like, "What'd you bring us today, ma'am?" Or "What'd you bring us tonight? Did you bring us food? Because I've been eating hash browns for the last 3 weeks," or "Did you bring us mail?" Because like mail is like the coolest thing. So especially when you're waiting for a package. So that was truly like so few people in my year group or like, my age got to do that when they were a young lieutenant. So I definitely don't take it for granted. And I don't want war, but being able to do your job for the real deal is like super rewarding. So that's all I mean by that. I'll do all the CTC rotations under the sun, but you do learn a lot. I hate saying it. Like I volunteered to stay to do a Warfighter in my last organization just because I knew I was going to learn a lot. So it's all about that too. My whole thing too in the Army right now is if I'm not learning something new every year, then I'm like stagnant.
Sure.
So that's kind of how I look at it.
A lot of people are stagnant. there's only so much, especially when you get into the combat arms. This is not a criticism of combat arms. Obviously, I'm a big fan, but there's only so much you can learn. Yeah, how many different ways can you drive a tank? How many different ways can you shoot a howitzer?
Yeah.
SFAB's different. No, I think
this portion of the podcast brought to you by the Security Force Advising Brigade.
Yeah, that's fabulous. No, I think I agree. I understand, and I empathize for sure. Like, how many schools can you go to?
Mm-hmm.
If you're lucky in combat arms.
If you're lucky to even be able to go to a school.
Yeah, that depends. At JBLM, they wouldn't send us TDY anywhere. Like, we were way out there by ourselves. So, yeah, I get that for sure. But that's why I wanted to try something new. I'm passionate about it. Being at the War College, we really look at much larger strategic problem sets. And so I think that, like, doing IO, I'm going to be able to support the Warfighter still. It's just at a completely different level. And it will be very different. So
what I want to try, and this episode will be a little bit into season 2, but you're actually, I think, other than our discussion with the Bales guys, which we did a long time ago, you're our first guest that we really didn't know at all prior to this discussion and inviting you on for the interview. So for those guests that we had very little connection with previously, we're going to give, as we close out the interview, we're going to give you a chance to ask each of us a question before we give you the floor for the outro. So
okay,
there you go.
I
Mike
like
has
it.
Turned.
All right. So this is the podcasty interviewing the podcaster?
Yes.
The tables have turned.
Yeah, I guess
So Curtis, my question for you is, what has been the most rewarding thing for you in doing this podcast?
In doing the podcast, I would say the positive effect that it seems to be having on the guests that we bring on, and the positive feedback that we've received in terms of it helping people to process their experiences.
Yeah, you're like a therapist. Awesome.
Highly unqualified.
Yeah, that's the best kind.
But whenever we hear from a guest that has said it really helped me a lot to come on and talk about it, or even just people say, hey, it's helped me process my feelings and my experiences listening to the podcast, it feels worth it.
Awesome.
And if at any point I feel like it has the opposite effect, I would definitely stop doing it.
Yeah, I'm sure it's tough. You guys seem to put in a lot of work to this, so it's been really impressive for me to see on this side. So I really appreciate it. Okay,
Thanks.
So for Luke, what is your goal for season 2?
Ooh, that's a good one.
That's a good question.
You guys put me on the spot, so.
My personal goal for season 2 is to, I spoke earlier about that tunnel vision, that myopia. My personal goal for season 2 is to develop a more robust and deeper appreciation for the roles that people that didn't have a direct role on Sperwan Ghar, that the piece that they played and what we were doing there. So like you bringing us milk or 40 my mic or whatever. I want to hear all that, because I want to expand my vision of that particular deployment beyond just my own experiences. So that's my goal for season 2.
I love it. That's awesome. I think
Good
that's
questions.
an amazing goal. That's a great goal.
Maybe you should be a co-host on a podcast. Call your friend back.
Yeah.
We should have you come back on.
Yeah.
When we do like a grand finale,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'd love it. You guys
call.
are amazing. It's been really awesome getting to know you guys. And, of course there's a lot of people that have deployed to Afghanistan, but there's not a lot that understand, Panjwai. Yeah. So that's really neat. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. And as you know, if you've been listening to the podcast, we always close it out by giving you the floor for whatever you'd like to say before we play the we don't have outro music. I don't know. Maybe we'll have outro music by the time I edit this.
That's like season 2.5 goal. No, I thanks for having me on. I was kind of nervous at first, just because I'm still active duty. My views do not represent those of the DoD. But it's
that byline too.
Thanks. To putting myself out there after listening to your podcast. You guys all come from the same community, and I am just a humble support officer. I love to support people. It's just who I am. I love taking care of people, but I know it's kind of a different perspective. So I was a little nervous to come on, but I'm super thankful. Really just want to thank all my guys from 296 and everyone in 32 and 123. They were really special to all of us, and I'm looking forward to hearing all of season 2. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Panjwai Podcast. If you liked what you heard, head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. New episodes every Monday on all major podcast platforms, Facebook, and YouTube. Visit www.thepanjwaipodcast.com for more information.